I'm Professor Random, and I'm going to explain how slot machines work. Today's topic is payback percentage. There's a lot more to this number than you might think. And I'm going to give you some pointers on how you can find the slot machines with the best payback percentages. Okay, first lesson. Most people think that a slot machine with a 90% payback will give them back 90 cents for every dollar that they gamble. Not so. A machine that always paid back 90 cents for every dollar that you bet would be pretty boring. In fact, you're hoping that that machine is going to pay you back $1,000 if you put in a $1 bill. That's a 100,000% payback. But that also means that most of the time that machine is behaving more like it had a measly 10% payback or worse. So, in reality, 90% payback is just a theoretical number that a machine reaches after something like 200,000 to over 10 million spins, depending upon the design of that game. So let's translate this fact to your playing experience on an average machine. Say with 1,000 spins or about 1.5 hours of play, you can expect that that machine is going to behave as if it had a payback of about 60% to 120%. And that means about a quarter of the time you might actually come out ahead. Now with 10,000 spins, or let's say about 14 hours of play, that payback is going to be roughly 81% to 99%. That's most of the time. And maybe 1 out of 70 times you might actually come out ahead. And if you played even 1,000,000 spins, well, you're finally going to get to within about 1%. But that's going to take you about 2 months of solid play. Okay, lesson 2. What are typical slot machine paybacks? Well, slot machines usually can be set to one of several payback percentage settings. These settings usually come in steps of between 1 and 2% in payback. Typical payback ranges are from about 85% to 95%. The slot machine's payback setting is done by either the casino or the slot machine manufacturer. Note that I'm talking about Class 3 or so-called Vegas-style slot machines, and not Class 2 or so-called bingo-style slot machines. It used to be that changing the payback percentage required changes in the hardware. It was a big deal to change the slot machine's payback, so it was rarely done. Now, slot machines can be reprogrammed from the back room because they're on a network. The industry calls it server-based gaming, or SBG. When SBG was introduced several years ago, people became suspicious that casinos might try to change the payback percentage on the player that was getting ahead, or that the payback percentages would be tightened on weekends and holidays, etc. State regulators worried about this possibility too, so they made it difficult for casinos to make changes once the slot machine was placed on the floor. Now, here are a few examples of some somewhat recent games in terms of what their payback settings can be. Aristocrats' The Walking Dead could be set between 88.5% to about 93.5% in payback. Konami's Flying Fortunes between 85 and 96%. Bali's Titanic just between 85 and 88%. And IGT's Sphinx 3D 86 to 92%. But their Megabucks is pretty much set at just 86%. And finally, Every's Jackpot Inferno can be set between 85 and 98%. Now, many states, including Nevada, allow slot machines to be set as low as 75% payback. But you'll note that most machines can't even be set that low. Now, you may have heard that higher denomination machines are typically set to looser payback settings, though this is not a strict rule. Examples by denomination, using Nevada statewide numbers between 2017 and 2018, are that penny machines average about 90% payback. quarter machines about 93% payback, dollar machines about 94% payback, and $25 machines about 95% payback, though there are very few of those. Now let's talk about video poker machines because they're very different. Most video poker machines offer the loosest payback percentage. And, unlike most other slot machines, you can actually tell what a machine's payback percentage is simply by looking at the pay table, if you know how to decode them. So, for example, a jacks or better type of poker machine, which offers a payback of 9 for a full house and 6 for a flush, has a payback of 99.5%. If the payback table says it gives you 8 for a full house and 5 for a flush, that payback percentage is going to be 97.3%. Now at the bottom end, if it gives you only 6 for a full house and 5 for a flush, that payback is going to be 95%. One note of caution, this assumes that you're going to be playing that poker game perfectly, and the casinos are counting on you to make a whole bunch of different mistakes, so your actual payback percentage might be a lot lower. Okay, now for lesson 3. What are some of the clues you might look for to figure out whether a slot machine has a good or a bad payback percentage? Well, the first clue is whether or not that slot machine has the potential for a huge win. Like moths to a flame, many players are drawn to slot machines that offer huge potential prizes. They're often willing to throw caution to the wind just because they might be that lucky one. Slot machines with huge progressives, like megabuck games, are a prime example. Note that earlier I said such games paid only 86% payback on the average. State lotteries like Powerball are another example. The payback percentage on these games are really low, unless you happen to be that one lucky player. Another type of game to look out for are the ones with high volatility. These are games that have the potential for huge wins if all the reels line up just right. But most of the time, you only get tiny wins or busts. People say that such games have potential, and the industry calls these core games because they're aimed at gamblers willing to take a risk. Now, if you're a casual player, know that such games have long dry spells, and even if the machine might have a good payback percentage, your experience is more likely to be during one of those long dry spells. So, you're going to feel like you're playing a game with low payback percentage. Another kind of clue to look for is what I call razzle-dazzle, or as Texans like to say, big hat, no cattle. One type of razzle-dazzle game are the license games, and they're fairly easy to spot. They almost always have lower payback percentages. A license game usually features a movie or a TV show, music group or singer, or some kind of celebrity or famous brand. A royalty is paid to these big names, and the royalty cuts into your payback percentage. These games are almost always leased, which is a risk and revenue sharing arrangement between the slot manufacturer and the casino. And this arrangement also tends to lower the payback percentages that you get. These games often have big progressives too, and I've already talked about that. So play these games for fun, not necessarily for profit. And another type of razzle-dazzle game are the ones that come in big cabinets and big displays. Those things are expensive, and someone has to pay for them, and that might as well be you, the player, and that comes out of your payback percentage. Another clue to think about is location. If a casino's customers don't have a convenient alternative, that casino is said to have a captured market. Casinos with captured players can afford to lower the payback percentages. Isolated casinos with no real competition nearby are one example, and most casinos fall into this category. There are also casinos with strong loyalty programs, that keep the big players coming back for comps such as free rooms, etc. These tend to be connected to major chains with player cards that work with multiple casinos, such as Caesars Total Rewards and MGM's M Life. The competition is the flip side. If a casino feels a need to attract players from nearby competitors, one way that they might try to do so is offer better payback percentages. For example, casinos along the Boulder Highway in the Vegas area have a better payback percentage, on average, than the big casinos on the main Vegas Strip. In Northern California, the opening of a big new casino that was the closest one to San Francisco prompted two nearby casinos to create some 95% payback zones. But the biggest example might be Reno. To attract players from California and Vegas casinos, Reno has some of the best payback percentages in the nation. Another form of location can be seen in online casinos. Competition for online casinos is even fiercer because alternatives are just one click away. As such, online slots typically have the best payback percentages, and they also tell you what those payback percentages are. Okay, Lesson 4. Let's take a quick look from the casino's perspective. While players call it payback percentage, casinos call it return to player, or RTP. But what casinos really think about is hold percentage. This is the theoretical percentage that a machine takes from the player, like you. Hold percentage is simply the inverse of RTP, or payback percentage. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal between a 95% slot machine and an 85% payback slot machine? It's only a difference of 10%. But if you look at it from the casino's view, these two machines have a hold percentage of 5% and 15%. The machine with the 15% hold tends to take your money 3 times faster than the 5% hold machine, and that's a big difference. Here's another secret. Occasionally, you'll see a casino advertise that their slots are 30% looser. Does that mean that their slots have a payback of 90%, while the competition's payback is 60%? Of course not. The casino is basing their claim on hold percentages. So, for example, say the competition's slots average 90% payback. That's a hold of 10%. 30% of that is 3%, and that means the looser casino's hold is 7%, or an average payback of 93%. Now that's still a significant difference. Okay, Lesson 5. How does the payback percentage impact your bankroll? And can you feel the difference? Well, let's assume that you're playing an average, non-progressive, 5-reel slot machine. Now, how long might your $200 bankroll last if you were betting $1 a spin? Well, if you were playing a 95% payback slot machine, your bankroll might last about, 5.5 hours. But 1 out of 4 visits, you might last just only over 2 hours or less. And after 7 hours of play, in 1 out of 20 visits, you might actually be ahead almost $400. But let's take an average Nevada penny machine with a 90% payback. Your bankroll might last just under 3 hours on average. And 1 out of 4 visits, your $200 might last barely an hour and a half. And that lucky 1 out of 20 visit, you might be ahead about $135. And if you're unlucky enough to be stuck on an 85% payback machine, well, expect your money to last just under 2 hours. And 1 out of 4 visits, you might bust in just over an hour. And don't expect to be ahead after that 7 hours of play, except perhaps on a rare 1 out of 100 visits. Let's look at your casino visit a different way. Suppose that your average length of slot play is always about 3 hours. How often might you expect to be ahead after those 3 hours of play? Well, if you were playing a 95% payback machine, just fewer than 1 out of 3 visits, you might walk away a winner. On a 90% payback machine, perhaps you'll be a winner 1 out of 6 visits. But on an 85% payback machine, don't be surprised if only 1 out of 14 visits you are a winner. So, I end this lesson with the much debated question in the casino industry and amongst us slot machine players. Can you really tell the difference between loose machines and tight machines? My answer is yes, with the following conditions. You'll tend to notice the differences the most if you compare apples to apples over multiple trips to the casino. For example, if you tend to always play a certain number of hours each visit, and you tend to always play the same types of machines. Now, you'll tend to notice the difference between casinos by how much money is left in your bankroll after these visits. You'll tend to have less money left after visiting tight casinos and more money after visiting loose casinos. There is, of course, randomness, and so you'll always find exceptions. Okay, I end this talk with one final pointer for finding those loose slot machines. The first thing I do is look to see if the casino I'm visiting has video poker. Since the pay tables are always shown, you can compare these tables to some internet sites, like the Wizard of Odds, to see how tight the video poker machines are. For consistency, I always use the 25-cent denomination. If the video poker machines are tight, there's a greater chance that the regular slot machines are going to be tight too. Well, I hope you enjoyed this talk. If you have any questions, let me know. And good luck to you out there.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe so you won't miss a video, and visit our website to learn more about slots and casinos. If you like this video, please give it a like, and we'll also answer your questions and comments.